So let me stop sharing for just a second so that I can just say hello to all of you. And you can see behind my head here, I have my New York Times articles. We had 4 projects published in the New York Times during the pandemic. New York Times did a special section every week on things you can make with newspaper. And we submitted one project and they loved it. And then they had us do several others. So just so exciting for me to have my New York Times pictures here. These are the sections from the paper. Okay, so let me just take a quick look at whoops, what did I just lose there? The chat. Okay, so it looks like I have some high school, a bunch of upper school. That's great. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen and then just explain to you what we do. So this is me and my assistant director, Paula Frisch. And then I just have to go, whoops, we're going to go to slide 1. Oh, 1 second. Okay. So I'm based in New York City and I run 2 programs. They're 2 physical spaces. One is called Dazzling Discoveries and the other Skill Mill NYC. They have to have separate names because they're in separate buildings, so we know which is which. But we do hands-on and makerspace and Fab Lab projects in all of these. I've been working in this field for over 20 years, before it had a name, before STEM was an acronym, before any of this was part of that whole maker world, before the word make was even a common phrase. And hands-on learning has always been my sweet spot. Over the years, I've created a couple of what I call products. One is a cardboard engineering kit called Dazzling, which is literally cardboard shapes with holes already in them. And we sell that. I invented it. I'm the only person that sells it. We ship it from our Skill Mill space, but it's just meant to be open-ended cardboard pieces. And then our engineering with paper, which is what I'm going to talk about today, which is a methodology for how to make almost anything with paper, tape, and scissors, with a focus on shapes. And clearly anything we do with shapes, you can make the link to digital design, which I'll mention as we go, but I'm going to focus on the paper projects in this session. So if you have some scrap paper, magazine, anything that you could grab a couple of sheets of, I will show you how we make one of our projects. So you would need paper, tape, could be Scotch tape, masking tape, even packing tape. I've had people take tape off of the boxes they've received and use that. We don't need a lot of tape. We need maybe a couple of inches of tape. So if you have that or want to go grab that while I'm blabbering at this moment, giving you a moment to go get it, have a couple of pieces of tape, a couple of pieces of paper available. We designed everything to use copy paper. Some of the projects are a little bit better with cover stock, and some of them are better with copy paper. Obviously, it can be done with newspaper. It can be done. I use magazine pages quite a lot. So any of that kind of paper. And the other piece of this could be any size paper. So you can make like our catapult, you can make it a couple of inches, like it'll fit in the palm of your hand and make a mini one. You can make a full sheet size catapult. It doesn't matter. Most of the projects can be made in any size paper. We base it off an 8.5 by 11 just for a frame of reference. But again, so size of paper is not so much the issue as ratio of the paper. Okay, so I saw some people leave and now you came back, so I'm going to go ahead. So it's just any kind of paper, tape, scissors. This is from our website. These are the range of projects that we've created. And these pictures will show you some of the common themes. The whole idea behind engineering with paper is shapes and using the same shape over and over. And what I'm going to show you is how to make those shapes, or at least a few of them. The idea is if you teach your students how to make basic shapes, then they can build many different kinds of things. And it's not as obvious as it seems, and kids are not as familiar with it as you would think. Generally, even rolling paper into cylinders is not always, they're just not, their fine motor skills just aren't practiced sometimes. And I find this is true in some ways more with the middle school kids than anyone else, and then some of the high school kids. The youngest kids do get a little bit more practice, but by the time they get to middle school, they haven't been using it as often and they forget. So just from this picture, you can see, so here in our cityscape, we call this our rectangular prism. It's over here in the storytelling bundle, this little character sitting on a rectangular prism. We use it in the catapult, we use it in the roller coaster. So there are several shapes, the track shape. Let me show you we'll go ahead and I'll come back to this. You'll see what I mean. This is just another version of the New York Times projects. If you want to see them and you type in my name in the New York Times, these will all come up. So I'm forever in the New York Times search bar. And so that's okay. So just quickly, the idea behind this whole approach is that there are, as you sure know, thousands of hands-on activities out there. You can go to Pinterest, you can go to Instagram, you can go to a million websites and find, oh, you could do this, you can make this, they're constantly showing you things. But what we find is that if you just give kids a challenge, whether it's that egg drop challenge, or it's creating a catapult, or it's creating a boat or a bridge that can hold weight, or whatever it is, often we find that educators go right to the challenge and don't realize that some of the students don't know how to use the materials. And that's what we find to be a big stumbling block. So we're big advocates of presenting or doing some hands-on manipulations with all the students about how to fold, how to connect, how to use tape before you give them challenges, so that when they get the challenge, they're not either scared because they have no idea how to get started, or they're just not stumped by just literally not knowing how to connect pieces. So I call this the moat, because it's what I find trips up kids more than anything else. It's not the challenge that gets them, it's knowing how to use the materials or the supplies to then make that challenge project. So we just have this simple concept. I know you've heard these phrases before. We call it leveling the playing field, meaning have everybody make some sample connections before you give them challenges. In our case, we work with paper. It's the most accessible, it's the most equitable, everybody has it. Obviously, during the pandemic, it was extremely valuable because kids could be at home. They would have notebook paper or magazine, whatever it was, and you could direct them. And we did hundreds of workshops where we could direct kids at home making these projects. We also did groups of kids. We still do this, where we'll be zoomed in and have a whole class in a room, and they can see us and we can see the whole class. But the idea, so I did this, and I run a camp and after school, and I do this every week in my camp. So yesterday I had the kids, or Monday, I had the kids just practice making basic shapes, rolling paper into a wide cylinder, rolling paper into tight straws, how to fold. I'm going to show you all of this. But again, we made everybody go through it, and I take regular white paper, cut it into quarter sheets, and have them make the sample shapes with quarter sheets of paper so they know how to do it, and then give them the projects. So we can start with these two shapes, and I will show you how to make, we're going to actually make a project together in a few minutes. So I'm just going to show you the kinds of projects and the idea behind this first. So here are two basic shapes. One is a track, which is literally a strip of paper. And again, as I said earlier, the size of the paper doesn't matter, but you want it 2 or 3 times longer than wide, that's all. And then you literally fold up the sides, and it strengthens the paper significantly. But that's a track, simple sheet, fold up the sides, and then a cylinder, paper rolled up. So with just those two shapes, you can make several projects. This is a ramp project, and I'm just going to flip through some of the kinds of projects. And I do want to make mention one thing. We sell instruction packets about how to make all of these projects. But our goal, and it's really just to cover our costs for having created them, If you can look at our pictures and our Instagram, our Engineering with Paper Instagram and our website, and understand how to do this, please do that. That's truly our goal. We're not trying to make money on it. We are trying to show you methods. And so this one is pretty clear. This one is a track. This is a roller coaster. This is using 2 cylinders, full sheets of paper rolled up into cylinders. They're taped down to a base. In this case, it's our paper tray shape, but just the core roller coaster is made with cylinders and that track shape. And my point is to show you how simple all of this is. And I'm just going to check in the chat if anybody has any questions or comments. Okay. And okay, so you get the concept of this. Those 2 shapes, cylinder, track, you can make a roller coaster, you can make a ramp. This is our, okay, so now what are the order of these? There's also the catapult that you can make, which we will get to at the end. The way I put these pictures together, I'm going to show you a few of the other projects and point out some of the shapes that are in them. This is a balance beam. And this is literally pieces of, again, this has got the track piece as the arm. This is paper folded up, just folded several times and then rolled. That's what the loops are made of. The sticks holding it up are also just paper folded up. Everything here is made with just paper, tape, and scissors. This is definitely a great middle school, high school one, because you can make all kinds of shapes. You can do all kinds of measurements. I did a workshop on this one for the Museum of Math a few months ago. This is a parachute. It's a sheet of paper. We cut paper into thin strips to make string. Made a little basket. And again, these are all available packets, but clearly everything we do is meant to be very obvious and easy to access, easy to see, easy to do. And then this gets into our cylinders. This is a vertical cylinder. There are just 2 cylinders here, one that's wider, one that's more narrow, fit one inside the other, and you have an axle. This is our car. This one's a little more complicated. This one you probably would need to get our packet because it's a little trickier to see how all the parts work. But again, it's still several different kinds of cylinders. This again is a horizontal cylinder, same idea. We're still looking at paper rolled into tubes, connected, a wider tube around a more narrow tube, and that's what makes it spin. Whatever you attach to that, in this case, that's our paper tray, but you can attach a lot of things. We do this in a very open-ended way in all of our classes, and the kids come up with many of their own ideas. So these are just suggestions, but the core structure is what you would want to go over with them. This is a different kind of project. This is one of our creatures. This is a paper box that has a lid to it. This is our paper maze. And again, it's that paper tray that I mentioned a few times with just some shapes. This one is one of the projects that is also one of our New York Times projects. This is a marionette, again, cutting paper into strips. And what I find when I show these is what teachers say to me most often is that they just never thought about it. When you see it, it makes so much sense, but you just didn't think about using paper in these ways. The handle for this marionette is just 2 what we call paper straws, which is paper rolled much more tightly, usually around a pencil, and then we pull the pencil out so that we get a consistent roll or consistent size. So we have what we call paper straws, which are tightly rolled ones, about 1/4 inch opening pencil width, and tubes, which are more loosely rolled, so the opening is bigger, and perhaps you could fit a couple of your hand or maybe 2 fingers through it. And they're different uses, but they're both cylinders, and they're both just rolled paper. This is our cityscape, which is our rectangular prism, and I'll show you how to make that shape. It's very simple. And if anybody has any questions, let me know. Corey, thank you so much for putting that in. But if you could put the engineering with paper Instagram link in also, that would be probably helpful too.
On it, and it's 116, just so you know.
Great. Okay. This is our Be Anything hat. This is just literally 3 strips of paper. You make 2 strips, you attach them to each other, you make a band around your head, and then you need the strip across the top so that the band doesn't fall down over your eyes. That strip across the top is the most important part. Thing stays on your head, and then the kids make whatever. This one does tend to be for younger kids. I use this one when I teach bugs, and the kids make bug heads. But you can make whatever. And then again, here's our paper straws. And we have a funny technique we call the paper clip trick, which is opening up a paper clip in a very simple way so that it fits inside and holds the tubes together. And so you can see some of that. Okay, so we've got paper, tape, and scissors. And we are going to make a catapult together. And I'm going to walk you through the steps of this. I just want you to see what we're doing with it. And again, this picture is showing you 2 different parts, both of which use only 2 shapes, cylinders and track. So the target is a cylinder, the back of the target is a wider track, and the catapult arm is a more narrow track. But it's all the same. And this is we do have several free projects on our website, and the catapult is one of them. And yes, it took us a couple of tries to get this to go directly into the target for the video. Okay, let's see. All right. So when we're working with tape, we use masking tape because it's the easiest to rip and to prep and cut. Scotch tape is harder to control, so we use masking tape. And then what we do is, particularly for the younger kids, you can have the older kids do this for themselves, but we pre-cut the tape, because the critical thing we've discovered is that you don't have 3 hands. So if you're taking a piece of paper and you've rolled it into a cylinder, you're holding that cylinder. So we actually say put the tape on the edge first and then roll it up. But before even that, we pre-rip the tape, and that's what we're showing you here. You can put it on the edge of a table, you can put it on a cup. You want to put it on something that's not paper, something the tape doesn't naturally stick to. So a plastic table. Sometimes even for kids, I'll put it on the back of the chair so that they're not playing with it while they're working at the tables and they just reach over. The older kids, you can give them long strips and have them cut it up themselves. Oops. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is play this video of Paula walking through the catapult. And I'm just looking at the share sound feature. That's what I wanted. Okay. And this is just, we're going to walk you through how to make a catapult.
Today.
Sorry, she said today. Does anyone have any questions at this point before I play this? You can unmute and just ask. We're good? Okay. So she said today.
We are going to be making a catapult. So we're going to make a ball out of paper, and we are going to make these 3 parts. So this is called the fulcrum. This is the catapult arm, and this is the cup to hold the ball. The first part we're going to make is the fulcrum. So that's this tube. And we start by folding the paper in half to make it more layers, which will make it stronger. So we're going to fold the paper, the short edge to the short edge, folding in half. So we're lining up the corners, folding in half. We want this to be a tube, so we're going to roll it up. But before we roll, we're going to take our tape and place it along the short edge up here. We're going to flip it over so that the sticky side of the tape is facing up, so that when we roll to make our fulcrum, we will end at the tape and it will close itself. So roll up your folded sheet. Try to roll tightly. And as we get to the tape, just keep going so that the tape holds it in place. And if you need to, you can add another piece on these ends if it feels like your piece of tape isn't holding it in place. So that's our fulcrum. Now we're going to make the catapult arm. And we take a new piece of paper. And again, we're going to start by folding this piece in half, the short side to the short side, to give it more layers and make it sturdier. So I've lined up the corners, pressing my fold down, and there we have half sheet of paper. We're going to fold it again, going the same direction. So this piece will be our catapult arm. As you can see right now, it's still pretty floppy. So here's a trick. If you fold the sides up to make walls, do that on both sides. And the more you fold in, the taller the walls will be. You wave that around, you can see it's a lot more rigid. So just by folding these sides up, you've made the paper more rigid and stronger and ready to become the arm of our catapult. We're now going to attach the fulcrum to the catapult arm. So again, just as we did when we rolled the tube, we put our tape before we rolled. So in this case, we're going to place our tape before we put the fulcrum onto the catapult arm. So I'm placing the tape kind of like arms, and I'm going to attach it around the middle of the catapult arm. So pressing down, really squishing the tape in. And I think I need a little more tape just to be sure. So I'm going to take another piece of tape. There we go. So we flip it over. We are ready to test our catapult. So from that third sheet of paper, just cut a section. We're going to rip this up and crumple it into paper balls to launch. Now we're going to test our catapult. So we're going to place the ball on the end of the catapult arm that's lowered and gently but quickly hit the other end. So you may notice that the paper ball is rolling off the back sometimes. It's going straight up sometimes rather than launching outward. So to adjust that, I'm going to add this loop or cup to hold the paper ball and help angle it to launch out rather than straight up. We can do that by just cutting a strip off of our catapult arm. It doesn't need to be this long. So I'm just going to cut the edge off at about 1 inch. It can be a little less, a little more. And I'm going to use this piece, open it up just halfway so it's still 2 layers, and turn this into a loop that will fit between the walls of the catapult arm. So I have my tape ready. I'm going to place the tape first, and I'm going to set it into the catapult arm and make a loop. And then I can tape that to the walls of the catapult on both sides. With the remaining paper that you use to cut a strip and then rip up and crumple to make the paper balls, we are going to make some targets.
I'm just going to pause here because I can see your faces, and thank you. That's what I love, that look when you get the catapult to work, and you see how simple it is, right? So now we're just going to show you how you can use the same shapes to make some targets. Do we have any questions at this point? And I will tell you, this project, which is again free, downloaded from our website, I do this with kindergartners and 12th graders. I do it with adults. Everybody loves making the catapult. Okay, here's the targets.
Today we are going to be making
Did
a
that go
catapult.
back to the beginning? Wait, I gotta.
So we're going to make a.
Oh, that's funny. Why did that not pick up?
Ball out of paper, and we are going to make. And there we have half sheet of paper. We're going to fold it again.
Okay, I'm just going to get back to where we were. For some reason, it's on my screen. It's showing the correct spot, but not what you're saying. We're going to show you how to make the targets.
So I have my tape ready first. And I'm going to set it into the catapult arm.
Let's see. Just hoping it doesn't. It might not. Otherwise, we can just move.
With the remaining paper that you use to make the paper balls, we are going to make some targets. So cut. The deeper the strip, the taller the target will be. So it's up to you how wide. I'm going to make some taller ones. So we're going to roll this into a cylinder. And that will become our target. But before we roll it, we're going to place our tape along the short edge with the sticky side up, so that when we roll that up, the tape is already there to close the cylinder. It's much easier than having to grab a new piece of tape as we're trying to hold our project in place. So there is our cylinder target. To help the ball go into the target, I'm going to attach a backboard. So I'm going to take a section of the paper and I'm going to cut a smaller rectangle. So this piece can be attached to the back of the target. But just as we folded the walls for the catapult arm and we noticed that it made the paper sturdier, we're going to do the same thing with this piece so that it's not so floppy. We're going to fold the sides in to make walls so that it will stand upright and be a more sturdy backboard for the target. I'm going to put my tape on. And I'm taping it from the back and the front. And you can make targets and backboards of all sizes. So there we go. Now I have a backboard. visit our website, engineeringwithpaper.com, for this Catapult project, which is a free download, along with a bunch of other great projects that you can build with just paper, tape, and scissors. Follow us on social media. Contact us at info@dazzlingdiscoveries.com, and keep in touch and have fun building.
Okay. So thank you, Corey. I really appreciate that. So I hope this concept is easy to explain to your kids. It's really very simple. It's all about shapes, and the digital component, use TinkerCAD or any CAD software. Once you get your kids manipulating paper, we find it very helpful, particularly a simple CAD. The under more accessible in their minds than just going to the computer and trying to figure out how to manipulate the shapes. Because TinkerCAD particularly, which is what we use most often with kids, we use Fusion 360, but the beginners at any age, the beginners use TinkerCAD, and TinkerCAD has all of those shapes right there on the screen, and kids often don't know which ones to use and how to stretch them or change their dimension. So you can see the very clear link between things out of particularly paper, because it's so quick, inexpensive, easy to do, and then taking that knowledge, visual sense that they've developed, and then it makes it much easier to use it on a digital platform. What else I have here? So this was another challenge we had. So if you make a target, then how can you get the ball to come back to you? This is one way, which is, again, it's still just those same two shapes. It's just another track. I've done this with educators a lot, and I get some interesting projects. The idea behind, you can use it. Mars done this many times where I say, okay, well, we're taking the equivalent of building supplies, pieces of paper. That's how you would travel. You bring sheets of steel or whatever sheets of something you would need to take with you. And then how can you cut it up, change it, fold it so that you could make structures once you got to Mars? We have a whole bridge packet, simple machine, animals. It's everywhere. This is what some of our pages look like. They're all very specific line art drawings. And up here, this triangular, rectangular prism, I will also show you how to make that, but it's literally strips of paper. So back to our original screen, now you can start to see what machines. It's in the roller coaster, it's in the playground, it's in balance. Cylinders are everywhere, from trees to sticks to a lot of these paper straws in our playground project. The rectangular prism, it's a lot of the same shapes over and over and over. First of all, you can also use the rectangular prism, and it also our Dazzlings. It's also our Dazzlings. And this is just a little GIF of one of our Dazzlings projects. And that's me and Paula. And then here's our social media. And I'm going to show you a few more things because we have another 10 minutes, but I just want to get through all this. So please follow us on Instagram. Look at the Instagram, particularly the Engineering with Paper. These simple supplies for engineering projects, and not to be trapped by the idea that you have to have expensive equipment or even cardboard, which I find many teachers think, oh, I thought I only could use cardboard. And cardboard is wonderful. I created a whole product in it, but it's much harder to use. You have to have the right scissors. It's harder to fold. It's sturdy in some ways. and it's a great second or third iteration, but easily to use and easy to get. So we highly recommend. My crusade is to get people to think about using paper much more flexibly, much more integrated in their work. So our Instagram for Engineering with Paper shows a lot of our projects. Our Dazzling Discovery site also shows many of our projects. Is my name. We have a Facebook group that we projects on. Our email is info@dazzlingdiscoveries.com. We love working with teachers. Get in touch with us if you have any questions. We're very happy to help. And that's the code for getting to the Facebook group. So well, here, let me just put that back in case anybody actually wants to try that. Okay. So I am going to stop sharing and show you. I just have sitting around me several projects that we've made, and I want to show you how to make the rectangular prism because that's probably the easiest one to use. Any questions? I know we have people who have their screens turned off, so they're just listening. So if you take, I just want to show you how really simple so much of this is. And I just realized I don't have tape with me, but it'll be fine. So you take a strip of paper, it could be a full sheet, it makes a tall thing, could be just a strip. I've got this size, but you want it at least double length to width. And we literally just do this. We tell the kids to take a piece of paper. Also, we use what you can see. So somebody just asked about limited amount of paper for the building challenges. That's up to you. It depends what you're building. But what we do is we pre-cut paper into certain sizes. We cut 8.5 by 11 halfway sheets, the wide and long. We cut thirds, we cut quarters, and we keep them in trays, or actually keep them in big Ziploc bags, those pre-cut sizes, because we find that that's most helpful. In our packets, it shows you how to fold and get those sizes. So if you gave your kids the whole sheet, the older cut their own, the younger kids, it's better to pre-cut them, but it depends on the project. So sorry, back to this. Longer and shorter edges. And we do not use any other terminology. Sometimes we'll say landscape and portrait because that's what a printer will use, a paper printer. But we like to use literally what you can see. And so we'll tell the kids to hold up the paper, hold the shorter edges so that they check and make sure everybody's holding it. And then here's how you make the rectangular prism. You literally you would line up the corners. And I have to say, all of these words, these are very deliberate words because not everyone understands what to do. So we always say, line up your corners, top and bottom, and then press your fold. Now, usually you'll do this flat on the table, but you could do it either way. We always have to tell kids to rub the fold. They don't do it. They just fold. So either you rub it this way, or if it's flat, we tell them to take their thumb and rub across it. You have to do this with high school students, not just kindergartners. No one really thinks about pressing the fold. So press that fold, and then so that it's a little bit like a book. And then you're going to fold side edges to the middle. So you're going to fold this side to the middle fold and line up edges and the corners, and then press the fold. And you do that on both sides. So now it's like doors. Right where my finger is, you put a piece of tape in the middle, right there. So I'm going to grab my tape, and in this case, and you just literally put the tape the tall way. So it holds your doors closed, and then you just pop this thing open. So it's flat and you pop it open, and you've got angular prism. And it's seems so simple when you see it, but it's not something that's obvious, and it enables the kids to make things once they get that fold in half, open, fold into the middle tape. Practice it a couple of times. As I said, I always practice these shapes with scrap paper with the kids before we approach any project. So now that you've seen how we make this, and it's very sturdy, I will show you that we then take that and we've made bigger projects. So I don't know how well you can see this, but this is actually double height paper, and we use it as a base of a roller coaster so that you can, oops, a little tippy. But you can see we start attaching our track shapes going around these rectangular prisms. So you can see it's sort of ratio to my head. It's much bigger. So you can make them taller, you can make them shorter. We have a free download of a little roller coaster project on the website, and it's a couple of inches tall. So again, these projects can be in any dimension, any way you want. Here's another one where this is the cylinder version of a roller coaster. I will say the roller coaster is probably our #1 popular project, along with the catapult. Those are the two that people seem to make the most often. And then we have a whole bunch of structures, which are great. So anyway, there's another one. And then
Just want to give, sorry, a time warning. We're like right up against it, and
Okay.
like 2 minutes.
great.
Yeah.
Well, that's it. So I just have samples here to show you. This is a
Cool.
phone stand. So we made this with just paper straws. It was a challenge for the kids to make a cell phone holder. Any questions? Any ideas? I would love to, hear from you. Again, follow us, send me an email, and I'm happy to, we're happy to help. If you have a project you're trying to figure out what to do, email us. We're very accessible. It's Paula and me, and we're truly happy to help with anything. So thank you
you so much. It was amazing.
Thank
That's
you. That was
beautiful little workshop.
astonishing. Loved it. Thank you so
Oh.
much.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank
It's
you.
so fun.
Yeah.
It's fun, and it works. That's what I promise. It works with the kids. Do this
Yeah.
with groups. It's a little bit miraculous because I've done it for
I know.
years over and over. It still works.
It's like a magic trick to advocate for paper over cardboard, because it's
Right.
so much better.